So we are here doing a full face thread lift procedure today. So we're gonna do probably 4 vectors in the face and then 2 in the neck. So I'm gonna start first by marking this patient up. Kind of our problem area is right around here. This area bothers her. We have done all sorts of procedures on this patient and she's really loving the look. However, we need to kind of help with this skin laxity. So I'm going to start by picking a point on the zygoma where I want to insert those threads, and this will be the entry point for my 3 vector, which will be nasolabial fold, marionette line, and then this jowl that we're starting to form. So when I'm picking a point, I'm going to just play around with the tissue and see where I get the best lift, which I'm liking this here. I then like to have my patient smile, real cheesy smile. Good, and you can see she's nice and toxed here, so we don't have a lot of wrinkles, which we love, but we want to be sure that we're not falling into those because then the thread will kind of poke in a weird fashion. So go ahead and relax. So I like this for my starting point. I'm going to stay about here in my nasolabial fold. Marionette, sometimes I'll emphasize these deficits just to be sure that I like where I am. Jowl, we're going to go deep down into the belly of that jowl. And then here you can actually see her antegonial notch without looking too hard, but I'm going to feel it, make sure I'm right on top of it, and that's my no-go zone. So we're never putting threads anywhere near that. Out of this antegonial notch comes the facial artery. The facial artery is an extension of the external carotid and comes up over the mandible out of this notch. So we're going to avoid this at all costs. If we do hit that, of course, it's not the end of the world, but we are done treating for the day. She would form a huge hematoma, which it's been done, but we're going to try to avoid that today. Our next vector will be the jawline. Jawline, I'm going to feel the edge of her mandible, and I'm going to stay about 1 centimeter above it. I don't like to get too close to the ear because it's really awkward back here when you get too close. So I'm just looking for this little bit of pull, about 1 centimeter above, and that's going to be our next vector. So I have prepped this patient, we consented, did all the education, and she knows to kind of stop me should she need me to stop at any point. I do have my fellow coworker, Bridget, here. She's gonna help with some distracting techniques. I like to use my finger to kind of connect these dots. So there's our jawline. Then this 3 vector will connect to the other 3. So this dot here, we'll go to jowl, and then marionette. And again, just like anything when we're prepping a face, you're not married to these lines. They're just a rough idea of where you want to go. So there's my 3 vector and my jaw. She's all clean. I'm going to use, this is my 18 gauge pilot hole needle. Perfect. And then prior to that, I'm going to numb with just some lidocaine. This patient doesn't have any allergies. I'm going to walk her through these pinches and burns. It's going to be the worst part. So I have 2% lidocaine in this syringe with my cannula attached. This is a 75 millimeter cannula. So it's going to reach to the end of my vectors, especially since this patient has a smaller face. I don't really have to worry about numbing the end of these vectors. I'm just going to numb my pilot hole. This is the same 2% lidocaine, little pinch and a burn. This is the worst part. I'm putting 0.1 in each. I'm going to numb down here as well. 0.1. Perfect. All right, so I'm going to go in with my 18 gauge pilot hole needle. Feel anything sharp here?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to grab the tissue like this, break through, and then as soon as I'm down to that subdermal plane, I'm going to level off. And I'm kind of opening up this space a little bit. Might be a little tender there. And then I'm going to go on to my next one. So I'm saving her the poke of going in each time. Perfect depth. You can kind of see my needle under there. I'm just opening up this space. And then the third one. Turn a little bit towards me. Perfect. This is typically the worst part.
Oh, God.
So I went in just like butter. Perfect. Little pinch here on the mouth, no big deal. Here's going to be a big burn, okay? Worst part. Big retrograde injection on the way out. No more than 0.5 because we want those threads to engage. You're doing great. Now curtain over curtain rod technique. Sometimes I'll kind of pull back to get me, once I'm in that space, little pinch here on the mouth. Good, we're there. So you're going to be nice and numb now. Here's a big burn. worst part. And one more, and then you'll get a little break. Double checking my notch. I'm right anterior of it in that jowl. You can see we saw the jowl clearly when we were sitting up, but now when we're in this position, it kind of goes away. So that's why I like to mark before we start. Checking my depth constantly. Depth looks perfect. This patient it's perfect. It's just working wonderfully. There we are, down in the belly of that jowl, big burn. All right, you're done with that burning for a while. That area will be completely numb in just a second. Now, I chose to use the spatula tip. These are 18 gauge Artes, so it's not a full blunt and it's not a sharp. I don't like using sharp on a patient like this. I chose just the spatula because you kind of have the best of both worlds. You can see the thread there. That's how thick it is. And then I have the tail under my finger. Once you advance these threads, you cannot back up unless you somehow lock these the end of this tail in. So I have my finger on it just in case I need to back up, or there's a couple other tricks we may need to use should we get into that position. First thread's going in. Good. I still have the tail. I'm always checking my depth. Stop me if you need me to. This should be all you feel.
Okay.
So we're down at our distal point. At this point, in one fell swoop, I'm gonna smooth this tissue out and take the cannula out. So 1, 2, 3. One thread's in, cannula's out, that gets tossed in the sharps. And there we have our first thread. You can see already, it's helped this nasolabial fold so much. Now when I pull on this, it's gonna be a weird sensation for her. I try not to pull on it too much, but before we cut, I will kind of accentuate that lift. I'm going in behind this thread with my next one. Curtain over curtain rod, always checking my depth. Little pinchy down by the mouth. That's exactly where she got a little wincy last time. Good. And I'm coming out. 2 threads in, one more in this vector. Doing okay? Okay. I don't like to do more than 4 threads in one hole just because it gets a little too full. What do you feel now? A little bit of pressure?
Yeah, the first initial one was kind of bad.
Okay. Patient's doing great. And the depth of my cannula is going to look a little different on everybody, but it feels great. I'm always feeling. And I'm going deep down into the belly of this jowl to make sure we lift it. Good. All right, so that is all done. I'm accentuating that lift a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut these. I like to cut them really, really, really short. This part might feel a little weird. It's really important to cut these threads short so that the skin heals over them. Now you'll see she has some puckering. Completely normal. I'm going to smooth that all out in just a second. This might feel a little weird. Good. It's kind of releasing the tissue. I'm not going to smooth it completely until I do that jawline. Now look how much this is such a good indication of how much lift we just got. Look how much this line has changed. So it was kind of straight and now it's lifted. All right, that track's numb. We're going to go in with a thread and then we're going to give her just a little bit of a break. Good. Okay. Little pinchy up by the mouth. Accentuate the lift and come on out. Now you'll see here this little pledget, or we call them marshmallows, got stuck on the thread. No big deal. Just take it off and toss it. I'm going to accentuate this lift and trim really, really, really short. All right. Now comes the fun part. I'm going to kind of release that a little bit. I'm going to put a little bit of arnica gel, and I like to use just a little piece of gauze and kind of massage the area. It doesn't look like she has any major puckering at this point, but I'm just going to feel and make sure that there's no obvious threads that need to be engaged. You might feel a little bit of popping or hear a weird sound here. Now keep in mind, these threads are multi-directional. So you can, we want to accentuate the lift up, but also those barbs are going the other way as well. So sometimes a little counter pressure is necessary to release them. You don't want to put too much pressure because the barbs the threads can break. It's a really weird sensation, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So look when I go like, you okay?
Oh, that hurts right there.
Right here?
Uh-huh.
So she's hurting at the insertion site. That can be completely normal. She probably has a little hematoma under there. See how I can tell there's a little bit of a puckering there? I'm going to try to get it out, but if I can't, it's no big deal. It'll kind of find its place where it needs to go. You can see she has some bruising under there. That's probably what's giving her a little bit of pain. It'll subside for sure. All right, then I always like to alcohol these sites before I put Band-Aids on, and then we're going to sit her up and kind of compare the two sides. Keeping this area really, really clean. This patient knows she'll have these Band-Aids on until tonight, and then we're not going to do any aggressive skincare. Just gentle cleansing is fine. Keep the sites nice and clean. So you can see here, I'm really happy with this lift. Obviously, she's a little swollen here, completely normal, not severe bruise, any bruising anywhere, but look at this. Look at the jowl. It is completely resolved with one thread. It's incredible. I just can't get over this. And look at when she laughs, I can tell she feels a little tight. That'll subside. But look at this, her nasolabial fold compared to the other side. Here we have this little bit of jowling starting, the nasolabial creasing, and it's just gonna look even better. Look how much her neck is lifted just from those. You can see here she has a lift compared to chin down, a little bit of more laxity on the other side.